A suspected serial killer has been found guilty of murdering a Portland teenager nearly 50 years ago.
A Clark County jury did conclude DNA evidence tied Warren Forrest to the murder of 17-year-old Martha Morrison back in 1974.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another True Crime Mysteries video. Thank you all for being here. Today we're discussing 3 more recently solved cold cases. But first, I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Aura. More on that in a minute, but with that being said, let's get into it. Number 3. Martha Morrison and Carol Platt, Valenzuela. It was on October 12, 1974. The remains of 2 people were found in the dense woods of the Dole Valley in Clark County, Washington by a hunting party. Because the bodies had been placed on the ground, the elements and wildlife made it hard to determine a cause of death. It was investigated as a homicide. One of the victims was identified quickly through dental records. The victim's name was Carol Platt Valenzuela. She was 18 years old and had been reported missing by her husband on August 4, 1974. She was last seen hitchhiking in Vancouver, Washington on August 2nd, and she left behind twins that were only 10 months old when she went missing. The other remains could not be identified at the time, and it was determined that the remains were female, aged between 17 and 25. Newspapers from 1974 said that law enforcement believed that the 2 women were murdered, but that could not say when they had been killed due to the elements that had affected their remains. Women could have been killed at different times and were most likely dumped, not killed, at the location they were found. The case would go cold quickly. The operation manager at the Clark County Medical Examiner, Nikki Costa, discovered in 2007 that the unidentified remains from the 1974 case had been mislabeled. The label was the case number for Carol Platt. It was believed that this was a clinical error, but it cost them decades to identify this woman. In 2012, the remains were sent to the Bob cell mark forensics for DNA analysis. Around the same time in 2010, a woman named Reba Morrison and her half-brother started to look into what happened to their sister, Martha Morrison. She went to look into the missing persons report that she thought had been filed, but at this point, Reba discovered that there were no records that a missing persons report had ever been made in 1974 for her sister. Martha Morrison was 17 years old, 5'4", about 140 pounds, with long brown hair and hazel eyes. She'd been in foster care with her sister and was known to run away occasionally. Her mother had been deaf, and Reba was reported that she was skilled at sign language. At some point between 1973 and 1974, Martha lived in Phoenix, Arizona, where she attended Jobs Corps training and on-the-job training program. There she met another student, and they moved in together in mid-1974 at Portland, Oregon. The man, believed to be her boyfriend, had worked at the shipyards as a welder. In September 1974, she left their apartment after a fight with a suitcase and was never seen again. In 2013, after Reba and her brother gave DNA, and it was sent to the University of North Texas in the hopes of getting answers. They got a potential match to the unidentified woman from 1974. The Clark County Medical Examiner would need more DNA from family members for a more accurate DNA analysis. They tested the DNA they had from Martha's mother, which also showed the DNA consistent but inconclusive to the unidentified woman. Martha's father died in 1976, but in 2015 they exhumed his body, hoping to get DNA. They got a definitive answer that the unidentified woman from 1974 was 99.9% Martha Morrison. Her case and Carol's were still open and unsolved at this time. Then, in 2015, Martha's DNA would be found on a piece of evidence.
She said that she was just waiting for us to get to the answer. So she had no doubt in her gut, and is obviously both of her and her brother are relieved to have the final answer.
The Washington State Police started to look at evidence from a case of a suspected serial killer in the hopes of finding something to close unsolved cases. They found an unknown female DNA profile on an air pistol, and in 2015, they matched this DNA to Martha Morrison. In 2019, Warren Forrest was arrested for the first-degree murder of Martha. Warren Forrest had been incarcerated since 1974 when he was arrested after he brutally assaulted and left a woman for dead. In 1979, he went to trial for murder and was convicted. He has since been accused of several other murders and is suspected of being a serial killer. In January 2020, Forrest pleaded not guilty, and his trial was supposed to start in April 2020. His trial was pushed several times after that because of COVID-19. His trial started at the end of January 2023. On February 1st, the jury convicted Forrest after only 90 minutes of deliberation. On February 17th, Warren Forrest received his second life sentence. He remains a prime suspect in at least 5 other homicide cases, including Carol Valenzuela.
When the judge came out and said at 5:04 that it's now 5:04 and I have been informed that the jury has reached a verdict, we all kind of looked at each other and said, it can only be one thing. It can only be that.
It isn't about just killing Martha. It's about all the rest of us that have had to deal with this for years and years. You know, I mean, that's hard on people.
If you would like me to cover these cases more, please comment down below. Number 2. Peter J. Kima Jr. The short life of 6-year-old Peter K. Kima Jr. was filled with abuse, pain, and anguish. Born to parents Peter Kima Sr. and Jaylene Maureen Ackle Kima on May 1, 1991, Peter was subjected to abuse and cruelty from that day forward. Shortly after his birth, Child Protective Services became involved with the Kima family after a family member made a report. Baby Peter was found to have a broken arm and leg along with healed fractures. His siblings were also found to have suffered multiple injuries at the hands of their parents, and Peter was placed with his grandparents, James and Yolanda Ackle. In 1995, when Peter was 4 years old, CPS placed him back with his parents despite evidence of fractures, healed fractures, black eyes, and other injuries. According to one report, Peter had suffered a spinal fracture, which can only occur when the limb is twisted until the breaking point. Peter's siblings often took the fall for his injuries, and his mother, Jaylene, said that Peter had broken his leg when his sister had jumped on him. His grandparents, James and Yolanda, filed multiple reports, but CPS failed to act. Jaylene and Peter Sr. were determined to keep them away from their grandchildren, and when they were allowed to see them, they described them as looking frail and injured. James and Yolanda saw Peter for the last time in 1996. They fought the courts for custody, but for some reason, they always sided with the parents. According to reports, testimony from Peter's siblings said that he once sustained a wound so deep that someone could put a finger inside of it. In 1997, the family moved out of their Nanawhale Estates home, most likely to escape the grips of CPS. Once they moved, there was little room for outside intervention, as Peter had been enrolled in kindergarten, but his absences quickly got him removed from their system. This allowed Peter and Jaylene to get away with their abuse even longer. Shortly after Peter's 1991 hospital admission, CPS ordered a psychological evaluation on Peter and Jaylene and reported that they had, quote, potential for abusive parenting. One support worker even wrote about Peter's explosive anger, yet nothing was done to remove the children from their care. The extent to which Peter Jr. suffered cannot be understated. His siblings would later tell their foster parents that Peter had been shot with BB guns, thrown out of a window, forced to eat dog feces, and made to sleep outside without a mattress or a blanket. There are many more details of what Peter was forced to endure in his short life, and most of them are too graphic and heartbreaking to mention. The abuse against Peter would come to an end on April 26, 1998, when Jaylene Kima filed a missing persons report for her 6-year-old son. She told the Elo police that she had not seen her son since August 1997, when Peter Jr. and Sr. left Ilo for Honolulu. Peter Sr. later told investigators that he took his son to Honolulu while looking for employment. The two lived in a tent in Ala Park, but Peter Sr. had other arrangements in mind. This is where discrepancies begin to creep in. Peter Sr. told the Hawaii County Police Department that on August 11, 1997, he signed over custody of his son to Rose McQuackane, a family friend he called Auntie. The two had agreed to exchange custody of Peter Jr. as the Kimas could no longer provide for him. Interestingly, the signed agreement that Peter Sr. produced was dated April 11, 1997, not August. So where had Peter been in that 1 month gap? Investigators knew that Peter Sr.'s story was suspicious, but lacked evidence. A year after Peter Jr. was reported missing, his 3 siblings were removed from their parents' care after further allegations of physical and other abuses.
And I also wanted to know if anybody's seen my Auntie Rose, because that's the last person I gave my son to.
When the police pressed Peter Sr. and Jalen for Rose's contact information or address, they could not provide it. There was no government documents or anyone by that name. Peter Jr.'s siblings, Lena, Chantel, and Alan, were interviewed by the police in the wake of his disappearance, and they provided some very disturbing information. They detailed abuse that they'd been subjected to daily. Lena, who was just 4 years old when her brother disappeared, told the police and the accompanying therapist that she had seen Peter chained and thrown into a bin. Later, she saw his lifeless body being placed into a box that had been taken to Honolulu by Peter Sr.
Spanks, smacks, sticks, belt, get slammed on the ground, thrown in the wall.
Did he abuse all the kids equally? Was it the same punishment?
No, Peter Boy got the most of it, unfortunately.
Why?
I couldn't tell you why. It was just the way it was.
I never really got to see Peter Boy either. He was either in the trunk when we were going out to the stores or something.
Why was he in the trunk?
I'm not even sure. Our dad said that he was being punished for doing something bad. We'd go to the beach and he'd be in the trunk. We'd go to the store, he'd be in the trunk. At the time I seen my mom going over my brother. It looked like he was, she was trying to kiss him. And then I saw my dad trying to beat on his chest, and I opened the door more because the door was cracked, and they just yelled at me and they just told me to go back to sleep.
Lena later realized her parents were doing CPR on her brother.
When I woke up, I asked them, "Oh, where's Peter Boy?" They said that, Peter Boy went to Honolulu to stay with his auntie. I knew they were lying, and they said, "Go look in the house, go look in the house." I looked in the closet and there was this box. Then I came out and I told them, I was like, "Peter Boy's in the box, he's playing hide and seek." He didn't move. He was just in the fetal position in the box. It looked like he was sleeping.
Her statements were taken with a pinch of salt due to her age, but investigators believe Peter Jr. did not arrive in Honolulu alive.
We're trying to tie up some other loose ends, and then we'll meet again. We'll meet and confer with the lead prosecutor, and we're hopeful that this case will eventually reach the courtroom.
In 2016, Jalen and Peter Sr. were arrested and charged in their son's disappearance. The indictment stated that the investigators believed Peter had passed away due to a failure to seek medical attention. CBS reported that the family had health insurance, but Jalen did not take him to the hospital because she feared Peter Sr. would be arrested. The indictment also noted that Peter likely succumbed to septic shock. Lena revealed that she had witnessed Jalen trying to resuscitate Peter Jr. before his body had been placed into the box. Jalen was sentenced to serve 1 year with credit for time served in exchange for her testimony against Peter Sr. Jalen would pass away in 2019. Peter Sr. was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The courts have offered him a deal where he will serve a minimum of 6 years if he leads investigators to Peter's body. Over the years, he has given conflicting statements, and his version of events has changed significantly. He recently told investigators that he threw Peter Jr.'s ashes into the ocean on the Puna coast off of Highway 137, close to Mackenzie State Park. Unfortunately, multiple searches have come up empty-handed, and investigators fear that they may never uncover the truth of what happened to little Peter Kima Jr. Peter's case has become infamous across Hawaii, with the media referring to him as Peter Boy. Peter is still considered missing, as his remains have never been retrieved. He is described as a multiracial male with Filipino, Spanish, Chinese, and Native Hawaiian background, with black hair, brown eyes, 4 feet tall, and 50 pounds. Anyone with information on Peter's case is asked to contact Captain Greg Esteban of the Hawaii Police Department. Number 1. Lisa Frassi. It was on November 3, 1994, when a housekeeper for the Honolulu Prince Hotel was making her rounds. She noted that Unit 206 and recalled seeing a Do Not Disturb sign on the door for the last 3 days, but really needed to check the room. She knocked several times, but there was no answer. She had opted to just drop some towels off near the door and unlock the room. It was then that she made a grisly discovery. Inside was a deceased woman, and she called the police. The victim was discovered to be the long-term resident of the apartment, 37-year-old Lisa Frassi. She had lived in the building for 6 months. She had last been seen Halloween night, and experts determined that she had likely died that same evening. Initially, detectives believed that Lisa's death had been a suicide, but her autopsy determined that she'd been strangled to death. Detectives interviewed neighbors, but no one remembered any strange noises that would indicate someone had been in distress. But one neighbor recalled seeing a man leave Lisa's apartment in the early morning hours, but couldn't remember any distinguishing characteristics of the man. Detectives began to look back into Lisa's life to try and find her killer. Lisa had recently broken up with her boyfriend, an ex-cop, and he'd quickly been cleared as a suspect. Friends of Lisa didn't know anyone in her life that would have killed her, but she kept a wide group of friends. Lisa was incredibly caring and a giving person. If someone she knew was in trouble, she was the kind of person to drop everything and support that person. She could always be relied upon for charitable events. She volunteered her time to help others constantly. Lisa had wanted to be a nurse, and those who knew her knew that that would have been a career she could have excelled in. Originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, she had started her nursing degree, but needed to upgrade some schooling to practice nursing in Hawaii. While she was saving for nursing school, she worked as an exotic dancer. It was her job as a dancer which sent detectives looking for any signs of a stalker or someone she had met from her place of work, but still, nothing came up. Photographs and DNA evidence were collected from the crime scene, but never matched any of their suspects, and over time, Lisa's murder case went cold. In 2018, the HPD launched a campaign to deal with numerous unsolved murders, and in 2020, Lisa's case was put forward by the Honolulu PD for further genetic testing. With the help of the Hawaii Department of the Attorney General, they received the funding required to send a sample of DNA to Parabon Nanolabs. Parabon worked on the case for years, and in April 2022, they announced that they had found Lisa's killer. Cecil H. Trent had been 29 at the time of the murder and was a long-time resident of Hawaii but was originally from Michigan. However, there would never be justice for Lisa, as Trent died in 2013 of congestive heart failure at the age of 48. Trent had never been a suspect in the initial investigation, and little is known about how or why he killed Lisa Frassi. Little is known about Trent. He was a retired driver, according to his obituary. At this time, it is unclear if they are looking for additional victims connected to Cecil Trent. Lisa's friends and family are relieved to have some answers. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. As always, if you want to support the channel, the easiest way is to hit the like button. You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss my next upload. Other ways to support the channel are by joining my Patreon or channel membership. I also have merch, and you'll find all the links in the description box, plus a few extras. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for more. With that being said, thank you so much for being here and supporting what I do. It is very appreciated. That's it from me. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.